I think having that coding knowledge in general, like sometimes I do wish that I did have coding knowledge so I can do even cooler things that, may actually be possible on a no code platform that I'm not using. But yeah, the possibilities are endless.
All right, welcome to the Brew. I'm your host, Val and Nikhil. It's been a nice little gap. I like how I can see your laptop screen on the camera right here.
You guys want to see my notes?
You got plenty of notes for the show, but it's been a nice little break. We've been busy focusing on a lot of stuff, but now we're gonna get back into the full swing of the Brew, especially as we're all now vaccinated and no more issues when it comes to potential COVID on the show and stuff like that, and we're all protected. But as for today's show, we're going to be talking about the no-code movement, as that's been a very important piece of not only the development of free logic, but just where I think everything is going. And of course, today I am joined by Nikhil. It's been nice to finally have you back on the show after a long time. But to get right into no-code, what is no-code?
Well, what does no-code sound like?
There's no code, but like let's go into a little bit more specifics to it.
So I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but to get into it, let's go into some background actually, right?
Yeah.
So most of what people use today, websites, apps, different platforms and programs, different softwares and things like that, for the most part, are made with code, and pretty advanced code that takes a while to learn, and not everyone has a stomach for it like myself. And from what I saw, apparently only 0.3% of people in the entire world know how to code. You can validate that. I'm not sure if that's true, but I think it sounds about right. And for somebody like me who got C- in AP Computer Science when I was in high school, I figured I'd never be able to create something dope ever, like an app or a website. But what these no-code tools do is basically, well, of course they're made with code, but for the end user, such as you and me, we don't need to code a single line to make something awesome. Mm-hmm. So yeah, for example, I've heard that a pretty standard website could take 3 to 5 months to make, depending on the size. You could bring that down to like 3 to 5 hours or even 3 to 5 weeks, depending on the size again. And yeah, so like I use a no-code platform, Elementor, to make websites almost every day, and it's honestly been a savior because I don't need to know how to code. Yeah, so we can go into the tools. I have a whole list of stuff that we can talk about, and especially the ones that we use in the company. But anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, so I mean, what I would explain for no code overall, so coding is never going to disappear. You need developers to create something. But what no code is that not everybody has to be that developer. Not everybody has to make it from scratch. And especially things like websites, certain applications, they've already been made for so many times that there's already best practices there. Like the code is already optimized. You don't need to like reinvent the wheel to make a website. There's already all these website tools out there. What you need to do is create something called libraries. Libraries are of those code, develop libraries so that a designer can then take those tools and then create a really nice website without even worrying about the code not working. Right. But to get to the point of no code, you have to then first master and understand that technology or what that application of the code is first, to then create an advanced library set. So like now I think we're finally in the space of where no code is really going to ramp up, just because we've been doing things like website development, data integrations, database management, app creation. We've been doing that for the last over a decade. So there's been so many experts that have compiled those libraries, created it, which I think creates then two different markets. There's the people that then will create those libraries, and then there's the people that are responsible for making something beautiful out of it. Because if you look at websites, you look at apps like in the early 2000s or like even 2010, when you look at like Instagram and stuff like that, they didn't look nice, but they were functional. Now we've moved towards like UI and like the beauty of it and the design of it and how people interact with it. So I think that's where the big push is going to happen with no code, is that we're no longer stuck on can it be created, but it's more as in like what is the actual use of this, how can we make it better and more applicable to the everyday user? So that's kind of my take on no code overall.
Yeah. And, when it comes to clients and service providers, right? For clients, it's just cheaper, it's faster, it's more scalable, it's more flexible, and like the client can, after the website is handed off to them, for example, they can go in and make some changes if they need to. It's pretty easy. They just need to learn how to use it. So there's many advantages across the board. Of course, I don't think code is going to die. It can't, because code is what powers these platforms, but definitely unlocks a lot of potential for many people.
Yep.
With that, do you want to get into some of these tools
I think we can talk about the tools, and then we can kind of go into what that really means in the future. If you're interested in getting into, honestly, any job, you're gonna have to learn how these things work, but how these apply to your everyday roles and what focus on education, all these things should exist based off of it. But I'm happy to go through some of the tools.
Okay, so number one is Webflow in my book. So there's many website builders out there, and they've been around there for a while. So Wix, Squarespace, Weebly, WordPress. But Webflow is that one that's really driving that momentum forward. Many top freelancers and even agencies are starting to use it, and just the capabilities that you can have with like making a website through this platform is just amazing. Like, they all feel like they're custom coded, and obviously there's a learning curve again. It's definitely going to take some time to learn how to use it and use it well. But once you know how to use it, you can do so much with it. So definitely excited to see what more can be done with it. Another is Airtable. So we use this to an extent for more basic things. You can think of it like Excel, but
on roids.
Excel that can do a lot more and easier. So, for example, you can do something simple like create a content calendar for your social media strategy. You can project manage your teams, or you can plan full marketing campaigns and product launches. And honestly, I think we should start using this a little bit more, because it's powerful.
Yeah, Airtable is really useful for not only just internal on a team, but external knowledge growth. So right now, as I'm fundraising for Edgecombe Research, I had to create an Airtable. And one thing is, like, you can create all the columns, you can create forms that you can then send to people. If they have contacts, they fill out the forms, automatically fills it in on the Airtable, and then from the Airtable, it can give me a Google reminder if they set up an appointment, if there's time or something I have to get reminded about. So it's a really good end-to-end solution that Excel can never do, because Excel is just a static sheet, right? Yep. Airtable takes not only that static sheet, but then also makes it adaptable based off of, external teams you're working with, or data you want to add somewhere else, or organize a project. So it's quite fascinating to see the power of Airtable, and I don't think we've taken full advantage of it yet.
Yeah, and I think technically you can also make like very simple websites with it too.
I've never seen that, but I could believe that, definitely.
Yeah, and you can do that with Notion, which is the next one, and I'm using Notion right now. So for those of you who can see my screen, it's at its core, it's a note-taking tool, but it's like you can also create databases and spreadsheets and CRM systems, and I know of people who are basically organizing their entire life on Notion, and I kind of want to do that a little bit, but not like to that crazy extent. It definitely takes time. And I know companies use it too for organization and stuff. So yeah, it just takes note-taking to the next level, and otherwise I think with the things that you can do it with it, you'd probably have to use some code here and there.
Yep.
Now, next one, I'm sure you're going to love talking about this, but Zapier, which pretty much lets you automate everything or anything. So why don't you talk about like how you have used Zapier?
Yeah, so Zapier allows you to zap. So that's the whole thing. It's called
Zapier.
Zapier? I call it Zapier. You call it Zapier. It's whatever. It's whatever you want to call it, man. At the end of the day. But the biggest problem that exists in any digital ecosystem is that you're using different tools. Like, you're going to be using an email tool. You're going to be using your website tool. You're going to have a CRM tool. You might have your data analytics tool. You might have, a sales tool, whatever. You have a bunch of different tools when you have an organization. biggest problem is they don't talk to each other, and they're not intended to talk to each other. And to make one platform connect their data to another platform takes a lot of expertise in code to create API keys and like move everything over. It's a pain in the ass, like just simply put.
Yep.
So what Zapier does is it takes those data sets and then you connect it to Zapier, where then you can choose the fields you want to connect. And it has pre-made integrations. It doesn't integrate absolutely everything. If it's a brand new platform, most likely Zapier doesn't have an integration yet. That being said, they probably can work on it with you.
Yeah.
But what they do is that they take all the major tools you have, they centralize it. So let's say somebody fills out a form on a website. You can then take that data, tell Zapier that I want that data to go into a Google Sheet so I can organize that data later. I also want that to go into my CRM system so I can organize that later. And then I also want it to, let's say, like fire a notification to my email as well and like compile that data. It allows you to connect the entire ecosystem together, which before that was a thing would cost companies so much money to be able to do. So I know large organizations use it, small organizations use it. I've slowly been getting into it because building an e-commerce platform, especially as a small business, you're not going to have a development team. So one thing I like to do is be able to connect all the ecosystems to one hub, and then I don't have to worry about it. Like I just have to double check that the zaps are working, and then once the zaps are working, then I'm like, okay, we're good. Data's populating there, but data's populating there. Do I understand exactly how it works? Kind of, but do I really understand it? No. And do I need to? No. And that's the beauty of Zapier, is that it's just taking that complication out of database management. And now, especially with data being everywhere, like we have way too much data.
Right.
I think that's why they've become probably the most used tool in any data connection. And there's a lot of competitors now, so I don't think they're going to be the number one forever, but they were the first one to like really populate based off of that.
Yeah. So like, for example, for any companies out there that have like a lead form on their website, right? If you're using something like Typeform to make really good looking forms, which I guess is also a no-code platform, typically if you don't have anything connected, I think the results or the answers or people who fill out the form is only available on that website, and you won't really get notified of it, of the responses. But if you connect Zapier, then you can have, as soon as an answer comes in, go to your Slack and notify you there, or your email and notify you there, and basically never miss an email. And it saves you time because you don't have to go in and like see, oh, did somebody fill out the form today?
And it allows you to do more complicated like advertising strategies. Like LinkedIn doesn't have an automatic connection to your database, right? Like if a LinkedIn form gets filled out, it exists on LinkedIn. It doesn't exist somewhere else. So you can now just say, send me an email notification, put it on an Excel sheet, and then notify these parties, or like throw it on our Slack channel. And we're never gonna miss that. So time is money in a business, right? So that, I think they solved the biggest problem, which is the waste of time trying to populate and find things when you can just automate the whole process with no code.
And that's like the business example of it. I think something comparable to Zapier would be like if this then that, right? Which is more of like a personal use type of thing, at least the way I've used it. And I think one use case I've seen wasn't able to pull it off because I think didn't have the right tools, but basically, if you're driving home and your garage is Wi-Fi enabled, then your phone's location will be able to tell the if this then that integration that you're almost home. So then your garage can open basically, and then tell Alexa to like turn on the lights basically.
I see a lot of problems with that, but we'll talk about that another time with like data security, because I feel like somebody can just take your phone and just take all your belongings, but.
Maybe it's good I never set it up.
Here in the office. You have it in here?
Yeah, for all the lights and stuff.
I mean, it's based off of your voice control though, right? You don't have like a separate like on your phone that I can like unlock your door.
Oh no.
Yeah, see, we're good there. We're good there, because it gets scary too when you can do data integration to the point using no code and simple things like that. And you don't understand like the back end of it, right? So then if you have like smart locks and stuff like that, and you just walk by the door and it opens up, it's like that someone just has to steal your phone and now they have access to everything. So yeah. That's the other side of the equation.
Yeah, well, another fun one that I did a while ago, it was fun for a little bit, was that, how Spotify makes like curated playlists every week?
Yeah.
Like a Discover Weekly or like a Daily Mix 1 or 2. It changes every week or so. So basically what it would do for me was it would take that playlist and create another one that would stay constant because it changes, right? And sometimes you want to refer back, or not refer back, but go back to those songs.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like another cool application. But moving on, you can talk about this one as well. MailChimp for email campaigns.
Yeah, so MailChimp overall, so a couple parts when it comes to no code for email. So a lot of people don't know that like when you get like a newsletter and stuff like that, right? That email is HTML code. So like that has been a coded email. So obviously a lot of email platforms out there, they allow you to just, make a template, move things around, but that's no code. Like you're developing that email with no code. But the cool thing with MailChimp, why I like it so much, is that you can create automated journeys. So you can use something called tags, audience groupings. Like there's a different features you can do or different fields. And you can tell MailChimp that like if and then statements pretty much. So if this person is tagged as this, they automatically get an email in 2 days. If they don't open that email, they'll get this next email. If they do open that email, they'll get this email.
Yeah.
And then you can just design like, month-long email campaigns and journeys. It's so smart because it completely automates a very timely thing. Like, I just sent that email to this person. Like, no, let's just automate. Design the whole thing up front. Especially for e-commerce, you can build beautiful campaigns based off getting somebody from a first purchase all the way to an advocate, and they're consistently purchasing and talking about your brand. And you can automate that entire thing. That was not possible before. Now it is. So MailChimp, and I know there's other email platforms there as well that are doing it. But I just personally love MailChimp because all the tools they have, and then Zapier, and then everything else we talked about, kind of like they all just integrate together so peacefully without a single line of code. Aside from an API key that you have to throw on a website, but that's like super easy.
Yeah. So next one on the list is one called VoiceFlow, and this is basically, it just makes it very easy to create voice apps like for Siri and Alexa and Google Home and things like that. Kind of like a drag and drop builder for a website, and kind of for anybody who's used Miro, which is like a online whiteboard, you can basically set your command or whatever here and then draw a line to the next one and things like that. So that's another really cool one. Any other things you want to add?
Is that all the tools on your list right now?
Yes.
Okay. I probably can pull different. I mean, the one tool I would say, I just don't remember the name. That's the part that sucks about it. But I'll kind of explain where my entire world of no code kind of started, which is actually in high school. Because the very first game I ever developed was using no code, and then I added some coding layers to make some of the CPU, like the AI who like start shooting at you and stuff like that. But it literally was a cool platform that you can drag and drop different fields. You can create an environment for a game, and then it was really hard to like develop the characters because like that requires graphics and code and all these other things.
Right.
But I was able to make a functional video game, and that was like the most satisfying thing ever for me because I was like, I don't know how to code at this point. I know how to like take things online and like add on to it. But what that really taught me was that I should pay attention to these no code things and, still learn code on the side so I can make them more advanced. But that was my whole start because I know that there's a lot of things for app development now, exactly like that. And there's a lot of things for even game development that are like that. Even Unreal Engine has like starter pack stuff that you can do to develop very early stage things without coding. And AR is the other one. So I need to I'll probably pull it up while we're talking. But I taught a class on AR, so it probably should have the name of the platform that I was using to teach that class. But even for augmented reality, right? This sounds like a very complicated thing in the world that you're doing AR. It's not. Because even augmented reality, what you can do is you can do no code to create layers, and then you can have environments. So you can take a photo and turn it into a video based off an action, and you don't have to code any of that. And my main point here, right, is like we talked about so many tools in the development of websites and data integrations and all these things. These are all the things when you're younger and you're in school, and especially while you're in college, are taught that these are super complicated and you're gonna have to do, thousands of hours of research to do it. I spent like a weekend watching YouTube videos and Google, and I learned how to use these no-code tools, and then all it is afterwards is experience and like practicing it with it, getting better and better and better. And that's kind of our process that we started with Free Logic as well. I mean, like the very first website we ever did was on Wix. We're never doing that again. Wix, sorry, but you lost us as a customer on day one. But then we went to WordPress. WordPress was more complicated because you actually do have to code on there. And we're like, okay, we need to find a good tool for this. Then we found Elementor. We started building off Elementor, and we're like, okay, this is great. What else can we do as tools? And we started building. And I feel like that's also why we've been able to build a strong team, because nobody on our team has to then go through that barrier of entry of like, you have to be able to code a website.
Yeah.
Which is super hard. Very, very difficult.
Yeah, and I mean, I think having that coding knowledge in general, like sometimes I do wish that I did have coding knowledge so I can do even cooler things that, you know, may actually be possible on a no-code platform that I'm not using, but yeah, the possibilities are endless, and I'm just super excited, honestly.
Yeah, so I think where we can kind of move the conversation to is two parts. So one is what do we think the future of no code really is, and then the second part to that is like how does the next generation prepare for that? Because I think those two things are really, I mean, we talk a lot about education on this platform just because we both have gone through, you know, you got an information systems degree, and as we talked about before, you felt like you got a digital marketing degree versus an IS degree. Back when you did it, when I did it, at least I was learning Python and some coding, and I had to kind of go out of my way to learn some other stuff, but at least for the future of no code, right? So we're using it actively. What do you think the future for no code specifically is going to be?
I'll let you start and I'll build off of that.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, where I think no code is going to go is I think no code is going to dominate almost every single business, because the way that businesses operate is based off ROI. So you're going to be looking at how much you're spending for somebody to do something and what the value you can create out of it is. The only companies I think that are going to be so stuck on like they're still going to code it from scratch are going to be a brand new startup company that creates a brand new platform that once again doesn't have a library or something that can be created, which I do think will have a no-code possibility after you get to a certain point. But like let's say a company like a Netflix or, you know, like a Disney, before that was like unimaginable how you create it. Now that's actually doable using no-code. Mm-hmm. However, the only difference between them and somebody else who tries to do it is you would want a development team on hand that continuously takes feedback and creates new feature sets. No code can't do that, right? Because you're going to be stuck on what exists. You're not going to be able to create the next thing. You're going to be stuck on what exists. Yeah. But where I think the future no code is like majority of companies now are they're gonna design like you're gonna wireframe out websites. They're gonna wireframe out apps. They're gonna take a development team and look, is there libraries for this? If no, you create it. If yes, now it goes to the no code team, and their job is then to take the wireframes and design into something super nice, reduces cost of the business, and then data integration, all these complicated things that we talk about, like database management, all that kind of stuff. No longer is it going to require you to have a CS degree, right, to be able to do that job. It's going to require somebody who really understands the value behind the database and more of the application of things versus the actual core development of it. So that's where I kind of see the movement going. Tech companies obviously will always dominate, so that's why I'm saying coding will never cease to exist, because tech companies, like when I was working at Esri, like you need a lot of developers because they're all ultimately debugging things and making it better and building new feature sets. You can't do that with no code. But I would say majority of businesses, right, that are not trying to make the next tech application, there's no reason for them to have a computer science person on their team when they can have like a designer, UX designer, that can more focus on the application to the market, which I think is going to open up the door to like, you know, the industry way faster, which I think is great. So students right now that are going to school and stuff like that, yes, learn some code, but like don't be discouraged, right, if you don't get it or don't understand it. Be more focused on things like UX. Be more focused on things like, how do I create an ecosystem of data, right? And then start researching and finding tools to do that, because that's where I think no code is just going to keep solving it. And I've seen some startups right now, they're focusing on things like how to leverage AI within a website to like understand, you know, like heat map behaviors and stuff like that. Crazy stuff that then the end user doesn't have to do anything. The AI is already doing all the work, right? So that's my future of no code, is that companies are going to be enabled to make such beautiful platforms and amazing things. Workforce is going to be focusing more on design and development versus like the core coding development functions of it. And I think it's a great time for anybody who's more of a creative person versus just a technical person, in my opinion.
Yeah, and for things like web apps, right? Like you mentioned Netflix and all that. There's a tool called Bubbleio. So it's kind of like Webflow, but it's for web apps. So I guess for those companies that have like internal dashboards or dashboards for their customers, that basically have functionalities that are more complex than just a simple website, or not a simple website, but a website. Yeah, I can pull back from corporate experience, just like the handoff between being on a design team and handing that off to a development team is just inefficient, and it's annoying, and it's I'm glad that there's something that can kind of make everyone's lives a little bit easier. And yeah, I very clearly remember multiple times where the design team was like, yeah, we can, we're going to design it this way. We're like 90% of the way done there. And then in one of the last meetings, a developer comes in, sees this thing for the first or second time. He's like, oh, wait, we can't do that. And then that just like slows down everything and creates a rework, and it costs more money for the client, even though they have like a ton of money. It's just something that can be avoided, right? So for a thing like an internal dashboard or a website, while you might run into an issue where we can't actually do this, the time difference between having to redo something with full-on code and with a no-code platform, it can be tremendous, like a few weeks to a few months even. So yeah. So I mean, overall, time savings opens up new opportunities, but I think the other part to that equation, right, is going to be like how's that next phase of development taught, right? Because I see a huge gap right now in education where it's computer science is a different department, right, and the business school is a different department, where they should be kind of synchronous in a way, right? Especially if you're information systems, but to be honest, even if you're in marketing, even if you're in operations, even if you're in management, you should understand CS principles. So where I believe education should go, right, is there's no way a university can teach, all these no-code platforms, because they're constantly coming up. There's new ones coming after. That being said, they should teach students how to learn how to access and use a no-code platform. So I know right now, for example, in the information systems, they use a no-code to build an actual application. So they are, they're leveraging these things, but they should really focus in on like all the different departments to like, here's a problem, go online, figure out different no-code, because there are a lot of like Zapier is free, right? Like MailChimp is free to a certain extent. Yeah. Elementor is a free version. So what I would recommend is that they teach like, okay, here's a problem. You don't have to learn how to code at all. Fix it. Use these tools and teach them how to fix it using that. That would prepare so many more students, and it doesn't even have to just be in business school. Like even in CS department, if they even teach them like some no-code things, and then how to amplify them using code, for example. That's where I would love to see education go. As we've been harping on the show before, like we want business school to be more technical. Even if that's as technical as they go, I think that would benefit students tremendously. Yeah. And I think the students that are spending more time online learning those things, and honestly just go to like a community college, might be more employable than somebody who goes to 4-year school and gets a marketing or IS degree, and all they understand is like some core principles, but not necessarily the actual use case of that knowledge. Yeah, and in addition to that, I think it unlocks entrepreneurship for people, right? To be maybe a few hours away from an e-commerce website where you can, sell something or even drop ship, a lot of people are making a good amount of money, right? And some of these people even dropped out of school, although those are the people who are like making a big living on YouTube, so don't necessarily like follow them.
If they're selling a course, by the way, they ain't doing this. So I'm just throwing that out there. If they're out here trying to sell a course based off their knowledge, they didn't make it.
Yeah, well, Shopify is another platform that we didn't talk about. So Shopify, WooCommerce, and Webflow, they all have like e-commerce capabilities. And in a few hours, if you have an idea, you have a product that you want to sell, you can make one yourself, and it will come out pretty decently, most likely. And then you can start making money that way too. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess just to kind of break it down, because today's episode is ultimately pretty short because we're just talking about no code. We're not going into some other topics, but the way I would want to close it down is having somebody understand, based off everything we talked about, right, how to get started in understanding and learning no code, right? And as I brought it before, I think the best way to start it with is like understanding a problem. And I think the way that we can kind of teach anybody who's listening right now or listening when we publish this on YouTube is, how do we go about, for example, building an e-commerce platform? And let's just talk about that using no code, right? So let's say I want to sell, what is this? Raising Cane's little yellow token, right? I want to sell this online.
I think we get sued for that.
We're not gonna get sued for that, man. This is just a public good.
Your phone case.
We're gonna sell. I mean, that's also. I mean, we're gonna sell Crave. Whatever. We're gonna sell. We're gonna sell a whatever product, right? So it doesn't matter.
Widgets.
We're gonna sell widgets.
What are widgets?
They're just
You just,
a suggestion.
We're gonna sell widgets. It doesn't matter. All right. It don't matter what we're selling, right? So we're gonna get started with the process of selling something, right? So started with no code. What is step one for you? What do you use?
well, first I'll go on YouTube and to learn, to figure out, or YouTube and Google to figure out the direction to start and see what other people have done. I always start, whenever I do anything, just try to get some inspiration. Then, wait, do you want me to walk through my like actual process like now?
I just want to think through the tools and how you go through the process and think of the tools that we're using.
Okay, so what I'm probably going to figure out on YouTube and Google is to use WooCommerce or WooCommerce on WordPress or Shopify. Let's go Shopify. I think that is a lot more accessible to most people. So on Shopify, I would probably start with a template. I think they have a whole marketplace of templates where you can start and make some adjustments, add whatever colors and text that you want. I would go and take pictures of my product, and I'd go on Canva to graphic design it a little bit, maybe make some ads, and some whatever else for my website just to make things look nice. What else? Then I will take my photos and I'll go back onto Shopify. I'll upload it on Shopify. And then honestly,
Pass the work to me.
Pass the work to you to make the ads, right? I was going to get into ads, but I was like, I think that's something that's better for you to talk about.
Yeah, I guess to kind of continue off. So, I mean, yeah, step one all the way to this point, like everything we talked about, no code. You can get all the way to the e-commerce platform, right? All the way up to this point, the only thing that's cost money is the Shopify. By the way, you get 30 days for free. So like at this point, you haven't paid a single penny.
Yeah.
And then what you would want to do is if you want to launch and sell a product, okay, I need to figure out some other no-code things. So we're going to get an email marketing tool. So we're going to get a MailChimp. Once again, you can get the free account. And it gets up to like 500 contacts. So you don't have to even worry about that. Or I think 100 contacts, but you're just starting out your store. You do that, you connect that to your store, and you watch some YouTube videos of how do you connect the MailChimp to your e-commerce store. And then from there, you're gonna look at, okay, how do I then understand how my customers are behaving on the store? So then we get, Google Analytics, and we get like a Facebook pixel. There's thousands of videos how to connect those two. Super easy, once again, no code. They don't Facebook pixels, Facebook for the first time, and this is probably the only time I'm ever gonna say this, they actually make a really nice, good tool with UX to like add in code into a website. So you don't have to worry about coding in buttons or any of these kinds of things. You can track everything you want on the website. And then from there, you'd go about setting up some ads and tracking that. That being said, on purchase, right, you don't know what happens. Like you might get an email notification, stuff like that. It might be hard to document that. Even though Shopify has its own tool for reporting, maybe you want a separate spreadsheet or something like that to track. Now you just get a Zapier connection, connect it to on purchase, push it back in. You can make your own database and you can keep figuring out what people want based off feedback and all these other things. And you just built your first e-commerce store without writing a single piece of code, and you just watch YouTube videos and go on Google. That's really how easy it is. And the reason why I just wanted to break this down to kind of end today's show is that's how we learned everything. That's how we built Free Logic. That's how I work with a lot of stuff. If it's not something that is completely brand new, you don't have to worry about coding at all. Leverage what people have done before, leverage what people talk about, watch YouTube videos, read on Google. Be very careful taking everything as that is the absolute, because there's a lot of false information as well on Google and YouTube and stuff like that. But I mean, I had to debug, for example, the WooCommerce drop down for one of our clients, and I went through like 150 different forums to like figure out how to fix that. Once again, it wasn't that, well, I did actually have to code it afterwards, but it wasn't that I had to learn something from complete scratch, right? I read what was the problem and what people are saying, and then I solved it.
Yeah.
So there is nothing today that you cannot create on a website, an e-commerce platform that has not been invented before. So leverage no code, leverage online, learn it very quickly, and you'll have a lot of capabilities that many of your peers might not have, which one, you can be a better entrepreneur, but two, you can actually be more employable because you actually have a portfolio to show that you understand how this no-code movement is going to benefit not only you, but an organization you want to work at. And that would be my whole take on no-code overall, is that I think it's just going to enable the next bright minds to create a lot of great stuff for not only big companies, small companies, but also for themselves if they want to make more ideas and make startups.
Yeah, I think the moral of the story is that you can do anything you want if you just do some research.
Yep. And don't get freaked out by hearing code. That's the bottom line. It's like, if you hear coding, figure out if you can no code it and you should be good to go.
Yep.
But as for that, any other final takes before I start talking about our kind of future guests that we'll probably be having on the show in the next following months?
Google is your best friend. Ask a lot of questions and you'll figure it out. With no code, you can do almost anything. So
awesome.
Have fun.
So as for now that we're getting the brew back and rolling, we have some guests lined up. One of the guests, he is creating the very first ever NFT necklace. So he is getting a lot of hype. I just saw that he was published on even Arab news and stuff like that, like literally in Saudi Arabia and stuff like that. So he's globally being recognized. This guy from Los Angeles, super excited to have him on and talk about how his journey to make NFT necklaces is nice, expensive.
So it's a physical necklace that's an NFT.
It's a physical necklace made out of gold, diamonds, and then has a phone screen LED made into the screen that has the stuff based off of NFT product. It is a very smart idea and it's a great move. So actually, it's once again going back into entrepreneurship and innovation that comes out of nowhere, right? This kid out of UCR, great story. Already had a chat with him, but I'm excited to have him on the show as well. We're also going to have some other entrepreneurs in different spaces talking about, for example, giving back to communities. And then also we're going to have some angel investors later down talking about, entrepreneurial ecosystems. So super excited to have these featured guests on the show, but also, of course, we're going to try to get more diversity in opinion as we head into the summertime and things start opening up so we can get this fully swinging again. But for those listening, appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in for today. Hope you learned a little bit about no code. And if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out to us. Happy to chat. That's it for today's brew. Thank you for tuning in.